Next, on Currents News, stakes are high as voters go to the polls in several states. The president's been on the campaign trail. What the ballots could mean for the midterms is next. The deadly California wildfires are exploding and smashing records. The latest is coming up from the scene. A Brooklyn Catholic and her extraordinary efforts to honor a saint. She hosts a 3-day celebration at her Williamsburg home. Plus, big news out of Argentina, a major development on changing the country's abortion law. The news starts right now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. A big day at ballot boxes in several states. Voters are making choices that could send strong signals about November's crucial midterm elections. The president and vice president hit the campaign trail themselves. Natasha Chen reports today's races will give a major political temperature reading.
I can't thank you enough. Let's get motivated.
An Ohio special election, along with primaries in Michigan, Missouri, Kansas, and Washington state on Tuesday, will take the temperature of voters across the country, which we haven't seen since June.
Who's ready to win?
In Ohio, the fight over a vacant seat in what should be a Republican stronghold has turned into a dead heat.
It's really kind of shocking because this should be just a slam dunk, and it's not.
While the same two candidates will face off again in November, President Trump wants there to be no question where the wind blows.
We must elect Troy Balderson.
I don't believe that our president currently has my best interest at heart.
It's not necessarily that you like the candidate of choice, but it's who you dislike less.
Trump has also endorsed the more conservative Chris Kobach for Kansas governor over incumbent Jeff Collier. On the Democratic side, New York's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is using her meteoric rise to help progressive candidates.
You know and I know that voting and supporting for Abdul El Sayed for governor is the right thing to do.
But El Sayed's Muslim background could be a challenge in the primary for Michigan governor.
When they shut out certain kinds of candidates, what they're actually doing is shutting out certain kinds of people.
He currently polls behind frontrunner Gretchen Whitmer.
Michigan's not an overwhelmingly extreme left state or extreme right state. We're a state full of people that just want our government to work.
In Washington, Natasha Chen, Currents News.
Albany's Bishop Edward Scharfenberger is calling for lay people to investigate claims of abuse or misconduct made against U.S. bishops. The bishop offered his plan in the wake of Theodore McCarrick's resignation as cardinal after allegations of sexual abuse were deemed credible. In a statement, Bishop Scharfenberger said the investigation should be conducted by an independent commission led by well-respected lay leaders who are beyond reproach. Bishops alone investigating bishops is not the answer. A boost tonight for the massive Catholic Church's opposition to a bill that would legalize abortion in Argentina. A key senator has announced she will vote against the measure. That brings to 37 the number of expected no votes, amounting to a majority in the country's Senate. The legislation could be decided tomorrow. The deadly wildfires ravaging Northern California are exploding out of control. There are a total of 16, and one blaze nearly doubled in size to become the largest ever in the state. The White House has declared hard-hit Shasta County a disaster area. Camila Bernal reports the latest.
Catastrophic wildfires continue to expand in California.
We're working as best we can with the resources that we have to manage this.
In the north, the Mendocino complex fire has grown 80% since Friday, now the largest in state history with almost 300,000 acres burned.
Mother Nature has taken its course and we've needed to adapt to it.
17 major fires are burning in hot, dry, and windy conditions across the state, but firefighters are working around the clock and are now getting some help from crews who came all the way from Australia and New Zealand.
We're happy to be here and very willing to help.
The flames have also closed parts of Yosemite National Park, but officials say they've been making steady progress.
We are working actively and quickly to get services reopened.
And we anticipate in the next 48 hours to really get some more containment on this.
Tens of thousands of people across the state are still under evacuation orders, hoping and praying that their homes and their belongings are not destroyed.
I wanted to be as close to home as I possibly can. I have 50 chickens out there, and I'm hoping that they're being fed.
But although firefighters are making progress and containment has increased, officials say they have a long way to go. Camila Burnell, Currents News.
President Trump has slapped new sanctions on Iran, putting the final nail into the 3-year-old nuclear deal with the Islamic State. In a tweet this morning, he wrote that his goals with the sanctions are to ensure world peace and get Iran to halt its nuclear activities. The commander-in-chief said the Iranian government is facing a choice: end its threatening behavior or face economic isolation. The president also is willing to hold direct talks with Tehran. Fred Pleitgen reports that despite the new action from Washington, Iran's leader could be open to a meeting.
Iran is reacting to new U.S. sanctions after Washington pulled out of the nuclear agreement between Iran and several world powers. Hassan Rouhani, the country's president, went on television and during an interview said several things of note. On the one hand, he said that he was open to talks with President Trump. He said he was ready at any time and without any preconditions. But he also said that he doubted whether the U.S. was really ready to sit down with the Iranians, and also said that any negotiations needed to be in what he called good faith. Now, of course, at the same time, the Iranians are also dealing with a dire economic situation, and certainly the sanctions now levied by the United States could make that situation even worse. On the one hand, Hassan Rouhani said that he believed the U.S. could come to regret imposing new sanctions on the Iranians, but he said that all of Iranian society needed to work together to make that happen. The Iranians also say that they're putting together an economic package to try and ease the economic situation in the country. Of course, the Iranians have been experiencing a dire economy for a while now, skyrocketing prices, and their currency has been tanking as well. That has led to some unrest and protests in the country. What we're seeing is scattered protests around Iran. So far, they're not that big, but they're big enough for Hassan Rouhani to also come forward and in that TV interview say that the Iranian government was ready to take action on that as well. Certainly, if you look at many Iranians, of course, many of them very disappointed by the fact that the U.S. left that nuclear agreement, and also many of them, of course, now fearing for their economic future.
By restoring the sanctions, the U.S. is forcing allies to go along with the penalties. President Trump vowed anyone doing business with Iran won't do business with the United States. A unanimous vote to remove Donald Trump's star from the Hollywood Walk of Fame has been cast by local politicians. The West Hollywood City Council passed a resolution to remove the landmark, an unprecedented decision. They want the star gone because the president, in their words, does not meet their shared values. Last month, Austin Clay reportedly destroyed the symbol with a pickaxe. He linked the vandalism to the vote.
It's certain that other people will vandalize the star. I think that violence will continue around the star, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's so important to get it removed.
Clay was charged with a felony and could go to prison for up to 3 years. The City Council has no jurisdiction over the star. The Chamber of Commerce does, and said it is safe for now. Trump received the star in 2007. A Williamsburg woman is devoted to an Italian martyr, and she's built a shrine at her home that attracts many from the neighborhood. Currents News' Katie Engesser reports she has worked hard to spread the story of a saint.
I remember that day when he came. Oh my God, we had champagne out.
Francesca Mazza isn't talking about the homecoming of a relative, but the day a statue of a saint arrived at her door.
You know, I fell in love with St. Donato as a child, and I always held a special place in my heart.
The statue is just the beginning of a tradition that now takes over her whole home, and a devotion spanning more than half a century.
As a child, I would see my mother, 5, 6 years old I was, that she would every year celebrate St. Donato.
Growing up in San Sano, Italy, Francesca learned about the Italian bishop who was beheaded over 1,500 years ago after performing a miracle and converting dozens of pagans to Christianity. But it wouldn't be until her family came to America and moved to Williamsburg that Francesca would help spread the saint's story throughout Brooklyn.
I was thirsting for that. I was thirsting for something, but I didn't know what it was. I had to fill out that emptiness that I can't even explain it.
Over the years, she spent thousands of dollars celebrating San Donato's feast day right out of her own house and driveway, full of believers in plastic chairs.
And every year, it gets more bigger and people are more interested. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners.
Now the tradition is being passed on to the next generation.
Building new traditions for my son, which we actually named him after Saint Donato.
Because in Francesca's neighborhood, the saint is more than a tradition. He's part of the family. In Williamsburg, Katie Anguser, Currents News.
You'll be able to read more about San Donato and Francesca Mazza's devotion to him in the next edition of The Tablet, the Brooklyn Diocese newspaper. Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is with the Knights of Columbus for their 136th annual Supreme Convention. The world-famous Catholic organization is meeting in Baltimore to promote its mission of service. The city is important in the history of the Catholic faith. The first diocese in the U.S. was founded there. There's a lot more news headed your way. The accused Parkland school shooter talks about the demons inside him. The details of the chilling interrogation are next. A big change in the Catholic Church is getting strong support from religious leaders. It involves the ordination of women deacons and the story of the man who snapped the photographs of many popes. He was very close to a saint. Do you have a story idea? Something happening in your parish we should know about? We want to hear from you. Keep this email handy. newstips@desalesmedia.org. We will be right back. Tonight, a look inside the troubled mind of accused Parkland school shooter Nicholas Cruz. Shortly after the Ash Wednesday carnage at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, detectives questioned Cruz and he spoke of demons. Transcripts of the interrogation are now out. Vanessa Medina reports on those details.
Nicholas Cruz was lonely, depressed, and very troubled, according to transcripts released by the state attorney's office during his interrogation. He says voices in his head would tell him to do bad things. Detective, you're talking about demons. What are the demons? Cruz, the voices. Tell me about them. What are the voices about? Cruz, it's one, it's another voice, the evil side. Detective, okay, how long has that voice been going on? Cruz, years. He tells the detective he listens to the voices, which at times he calls the demon, because he was lonely, and listening to the voices was better than being alone. Detective, and what does the voice say to you? What does it tell you to do? Cruz, burn, kill, destroy.
For him killing 17 people, 17 of my friends, 17 of my classmates and teachers, it's not fair. I feel like that he should stay in prison, rot in prison, and be put into general population.
Mei Ling Ho-Shing will be a senior at MSD, and she just wants to get this last year, she says, over with.
It's still fresh to me because every single day I am identified as an MSD student and the trauma that I went through. So there's days where I'm still crying. There's still times where I do suffer from PTSD.
What makes matters worse for her, a broken promise. There will be no metal detectors at MSD when school starts. According to this letter sent to all students, the district will instead have a workshop to discuss it August 14th.
They talked to the students, they talked to the parents of my schools, and we all agreed, most of us agreed that this was the right thing to do. So our system has failed us in a way that we now have to make sure our schools are bulletproof.
This as these transcripts shed light on just how dark Cruz's thoughts were. Here he says, I want to die. At the end, you're nothing but worthless.
A Broward County grand jury indicted Cruz on 17 counts of premeditated murder in the first degree. Prosecutors have said they plan to seek the death penalty. Pope Francis is praying for the victims of that deadly Indonesian earthquake as emergency personnel struggle to rescue survivors. In a telegram to Indonesia's Catholic Church, the Holy Father expressed his, quote, heartfelt solidarity with all those affected by this tragedy. He also offered encouragement to the search teams. At least 105 people died from the tremor. A new study finds that the majority of religious superiors in the United States are in favor of ordaining women to the diaconate. 72% of the religious leaders favor ordination of women deacons, while 58% believe the church would authorize female deacons. The survey comes from the Catholic Research Center at Georgetown University and the Pope's request to study women deacons. Pope Francis is asking Catholics worldwide to pray for families. That's his intention for the month of August. He says they are, quote, treasures that must be protected in this video.
Al hablar de las familias, muchas veces me viene a la cabeza la imagen de un tesoro. El ritmo de la vida actual, el estrés, la presión del trabajo y también la poca atención de las instituciones puede poner a las familias en peligro. No es suficiente hablar de su importancia. Es necesario promover medidas concretas y desarrollar su papel en la sociedad con una buena política familiar. Pidamos para que las grandes opciones económicas y políticas protejan a la familia como el tesoro de la humanidad.
The Holy Father will travel to Ireland later this month for the World Meeting of Families. He celebrated the family when he was in Philadelphia for the worldwide gathering in 2015. Well, now he's going to Dublin, and New York's Pope station Net TV will be televising special live coverage of the journey. Be sure to join us when the World Meeting of Families begins on Monday, August 20th, and continuing through the Holy Father's time in Ireland. He's been at the side of 6 different popes, taking their photographs at the most historic moments of their papacies. Melissa Butts reports that while Arturo Madi admired each of the Holy Fathers he served, one holds a special place in his heart.
His story is one of strength, dedication, and sacrifice. Arturo Madi was only 16 when he began as Vatican photographer on March 9, 1956. He would go on to give 55 years of his life to immortalizing the most important moments of 6 different popes. From John the 23rd to Benedict the 16th, he froze those moments in time. His most special relationship, though, was with John Paul II, with whom he became friends during the Second Vatican Council. Neither of the two imagined one would end up being pope, and the other would be the first to photograph him after the white smoke.
From one minute to the next, we see the white smoke. Habemus papum. People were asking, is he African? I screamed. It was him. I almost had a heart attack. I was so happy. I was outside the Sistine Chapel, and they opened the door. I was going to go in when I saw him a few feet away. He looked at me, he smiled, and then he went like, look how I'm dressed. He hugged me, he blessed me, and I hurried off to work.
From then on, Arturo was John Paul II's shadow. He didn't miss a single day of work, despite having 5 vacation days a year. This allowed both men to get to know each other so well that their relationship became almost father-son-like.
For 27 years, from the first to the last day, I was there with him. I can say he treated me like a son. I saw him as a father. He had time to ask me how I was, if everything was going well at home with my wife. He spoke with my wife 3 times, and I still don't know what he told her. Whenever I ask her, she says, it's not your business.
These 27 years by the Pope's side were filled with moments he would remember for the rest of his life. Mauri assures the most difficult and beautiful at the same time was the day they bid farewell. The Pope called for him to visit him in his room.
Santo Padre, Arturo. They told him, Holy Father, Arturo is here. He was in his bed and slowly turned over. When I saw him, my heart leapt. He had a smile, eyes I hadn't seen in months. It moved me so much that I knelt before him. He caressed my head and blessed my hands for a few moments. At the end, he told me, Arturo, thank you, thank you.
Mauri attributes luck to the success of some of his photos, assuring it was being in the right place at the right time. He says there's only one key to so many years of work: humility. It's a lesson he learned from John Paul II.
As a photographer, the big secret is entering into the charisma with the person you have in front of you. If you don't feel it, you'll never do it well.
Mari has kept each one of the cameras that have accompanied him throughout life, even one that saved his life during a riot in Bogota. His job allowed him to get to know John Paul II better than anyone.
At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
Still to come on Currents News, the United States is celebrating the Purple Heart today. The award for bravery goes back to the first days of the nation. A Queen's parishioner has been awarded the honor, and he's still serving people today. His wonderful story coming up. We'll be right back. A big problem in the ocean is sweeping up the East Coast. The feds are calling it the red tide. It's an algae bloom that robs the water of oxygen and produces toxins. The red tide kills marine life from fish and manatees to turtles and even seabirds. The trouble started in Florida, but it's now affecting all states along the East Coast. Officials warn that the red tide also can be harmful to people. A special remembrance for those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Today is Purple Heart Day, an award that celebrates men and women wounded or killed in battle. It was created in the earliest days of the nation by George Washington after the Revolutionary War. An estimated 1.8 million Purple Heart medals have been awarded since then. It's the oldest military decoration. Here in the Diocese of Brooklyn and Queens, one man has earned 2 Purple Hearts for his service to his country, and now he serves God. Currents News' Tim Harfman has that story.
Just going to do it every morning.
For 70-year-old Howie Sienski, serving the church means being closer to God and fellow parishioners.
I love it because I meet so many beautiful people. They know me and I know them.
But St. Francis de Sales' cheerful maintenance man once served in a different way. In 1968, at the age of 21, Howie was drafted into the Army during the Vietnam War. While on guard duty in the boonies, operating a .50 caliber machine gun, he was shot.
I heard something coming in, and then I felt like something but burning inside me, in the back of me. You can actually put a quarter in it.
Part of a mortar shell similar to this one tore his vest from behind. He was treated for the injury, and months later, Howie was on duty again and under attack.
We had the tripwire, we had the bywire everywhere, and gee, I thought it would be the end.
The firefight lasts through the night.
You don't see nobody, you see blood everywhere, and then all of a sudden I heard like an AK-47 go off at one time, and somebody said, "You got shot in the leg." I never knew I got shot.
Howie was awarded 2 Purple Hearts, one of the military's highest honors, but his Bell Harbor parish knows him best for his own caring heart.
He's just a wonderful human being, and as they say, maybe the Vietnam veterans weren't always welcome home, but Howard is very much welcome in our community, and we praise him as we praise all veterans.
I think about all the guys that die, and that's why I put an MIA flag on my flagpole. I think about guys here. I wear my bracelet. See what I wear? I wear my bracelet. The guy did 1968. That's the guy who's missing since I was there. I didn't know that. He got his name on it. They never found him.
Oh, the Catholic war hero continues to serve God and country, and we, of course, continue to pray for him and thank him so much for his service. That is Currents News. Thank you for joining us. I'm Liz Faublas. Set your DVR to record this program so that you never miss it, because we are putting your faith in the news, and I hope to see you again next time.